May I request all the people managers to ask their teams also to join in?
Good evening, Deepa.
Good evening, Dilip ji. How are you?
I'm very well.
Again, may I request all the people managers, all the SMs to ask their teams to join in for the call? We will wait for another 5 minutes and then we will start our call. Yeah. May I again request all the people managers to ask their team to join for the call? Yeah. So let's start. And again, I'll lessons to ask your team to join by the time we start. So hello everyone. Very warm welcome to all of you. I am very happy to be on this call with you after a long time. So I hope everyone is doing really well. So today we are on this call for a workshop on gender sensitization and POSH, which is prevention of sexual harassment at workplace. So I am sure in the last couple of years you would have gone through a workshop or a e-training module on the same subject. But for the first time at Nebia India, we are going to host a live session for all of you. The aim of the session is to guide you on the appropriate behaviors or the inappropriate behaviors which we should be aware of in the workplace. What are the law that is existing on this particular subject in our country, and a little bit about the gender sensitization as well. So today with us we have a team from Ask Insights. So they are the pioneers in this particular subject. So I would like to welcome Dr. Neeru and Amber Rana as our guest speakers for this particular session. So over to you, Dr. Neeru. I would request you to introduce yourself and Amber as well for this particular session.
Thank you so much, Deepa. It's a delight to be here today. Good evening, everybody. So I know this is a topic people come with various thoughts in the mind that will it be boring? Will it be blaming? What kind of a topic is this? It is a sensitive topic that we are addressing today. But at the outset, even before I introduce myself, I'd like to say that our intention today, mine and Amber's intention today, is not to identify or talk to offenders, but rather to make you as the change agents of culture. We're going to be talking a lot about culture today, where how the culture of an organization can simply make sure that these things don't even exist. And that not that we have to deal with it and how do we deal with it, but they don't exist. The culture is so selfless. There is so much of respect between the two genders. That's what we're aiming for. So today we're going to address it from two perspectives. One is the legal and the compliance perspective, for which we have Amber with us. And then there's the very interesting gender intelligence perspective. I'm not even going to call it gender sensitization, it's gender intelligence, right? I'm going to touch upon biases, I'm going to touch upon gender intelligence, and finally we're going to wrap.
There is a network connection problem. I'm not sure if it is only at my end.
No,
Would
I cannot
anyone
hear.
else confirm?
Yes, it is
Yes,
not
we can
audible.
hear.
Deepa.
Dr. Neeru, we lost you towards the end.
Your mic is mute, Neeru ma'am.
Yeah, someone has muted her.
You're muted.
Dr. Neeru, we can't hear you. It seems you are muted. Let me just ping her. Amber, so we start. I'm parallelly pinging her to check if in case there is a network connection error.
Yeah. So hi, good evening, everybody. Sorry to bother you guys during the COVID times. I'm sure this time was of a sense of you guys being off the workspace. So today's session, I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Amber Rana. I'm an advocate by profession. I run my own law firm by the name of AM Rana Ventures, but I'm representing Ask Insights today as one of the core team members and official representatives in the legal capacity. And thank you so much for having us here. And once again, as I say, sorry, because this session is more about, as I use in the court of law as a Majnu session, right? We're trying to address the Majnus out there who tend to affect the working of a sensible organization. So thank you all. Thank you being there, and happy to host this session along with Dr. Neeru Kumar, who's an exemplified and a superb trainer. So thank you guys, and let's start with the session first. Over to you, ma'am, and Deepa, could you please play the clip for us, please? There's going to be a short AV we'll be playing for you just to start and keep the things on set. So Deepa, could you do that for us, please?
Sure, Amber. Yeah, I'll just play the video. Please do let me know once my screen is visible. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
All right.
We can't hear the audio in the clip.
Is the audio not? Is it audible?
No, Deepa, I cannot hear the audio as well.
Amber? Wait, I'll reshare. Just a second.
Yeah, please reshare it.
Yeah.
Deepa, would you like to play it right from the beginning?
Come in.
It is working now. It is working now.
Okay. I have played it again.
Can you come into the office, please?
Yes, sir.
Come in.
Good afternoon, sir. I will get the work done by tomorrow, so you don't have to worry about it.
See, you are a very smart young woman. I just love how ambitious you are. Yeah. Had lunch?
No, sir.
Then have it with me. I will not take no for an answer. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Relax. Okay. We are all friends here. Everyone. Yeah. So I noticed that you have applied for promotion.
Yes, sir. I have been bringing clients for the company and I have been taking these webinars and trainings. It's only reasonable to apply for a promotion.
Absolutely. You've done a fantastic job with yourself, and the company owes you a lot. And I mean, to be honest, a good-looking, smart, and confident woman like you, it's not a surprise to me. But see, the thing is, I can only give out so many promotions in a given year. So, and I've already marked my promotions for this year. And during these times of COVID, you know how it is. I mean, the company is trying to maximize their profits, and so it's not going to be easy for me to justify an extra times of COVID as well. So
Oh, All right, of course.
Arey, don't look so sad. Maybe I can try to find the money elsewhere.
I really hope you do, sir. I mean, I have been burning the midnight oil this year.
Yeah, I might be able to help you there, but you might have to work in extra. A lot of time together, client meetings in different hotels. Yeah, it's not going to be easy, but if you are willing to put in the time and effort with me, maybe I can find that money for your promotion. But if you're not, well, it's not mandatory, of course. I need your consent before I can proceed with all this. What can we do? I'll just have to find someone else to put in all that effort. Cool. So let me know what you decide. Yeah. 1 second. Bhaiya, just send some coffee along with the food. Thank you.
Right. So, end of the video for us, but I think due to some network issues, we couldn't get the real. But just to give you guys a heads, this is a typical scenario that we face on a daily basis.
Voice of yours.
Is my voice? Is it okay now?
It's okay, Amber.
No, I think there's an echo that's happening.
No. Yeah. Repeating. Your voice is repeating.
Yes. Let me just log in again, maybe. Is it better now?
I would request everyone to go on mute other than now. And it will not echo. Yeah.
Hello.
May I request others to please go on mute, and Amber, you may please continue. Let's check if there is any problem.
Yeah. I mean, is it resounding now? No, it's not.
Is it resounding now? No, it's not.
It is.
It's better for me now.
I think reconnect because there is an echo.
I'll join in
mind
again.
reconnecting?
I'll join in again.
Yeah.
Let me join again.
Yeah. All right. Yes, Dr. Neeru.
What is happening is that there is a coming with a gap.
Yes, so Dr. Neeru, I'll request you also join in again. I mean, log into the call again.
Yes, guys, can you hear me now?
Still echoing.
Yes, Amber.
Deepa, there is again the resonation. I think it's again.
Sir, is there any challenge at your end? I can hear him properly.
Okay, maybe it is a problem on my hand.
I'm hearing everybody twice.
Yeah, same here.
Could anyone else confirm? Is there a problem in the connection at their end also?
Yes, Deepa. I think Deepa, everyone is facing the same issue.
Yes, Deepa. Same thing is happening.
Should I reconnect? Should everybody reconnect on the call?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I think anyone connect from Latvian mobile phone.
I can hear it properly on my end. So maybe I will just log into the call again. Just
Hello. Hello.
hello, Amber. Could you confirm again if the persisting?
Hi,
Let's
Deepa.
just check issue with Microsoft Teams.
Hi, everybody. Is my sound resonating now?
It's
Can you
better
guys hear me?
actually.
Yeah, it's a little
Yeah,
better.
it's
I cannot
better.
hear myself. You guys have to confirm.
It's better
Yeah,
now.
it's fine. It's fine. You
Yeah.
can speak.
So this is the window of
Okay, okay.
opportunity. Let's
Let's
start the
proceed.
session here. And
Yeah.
guys, we just played a video for you guys, and this is a typical scenario which I face every day in the courts. And I have somebody who's a complainant, somebody who's a respondent who walks into me and says that, sir, this is the issue that I have faced with. Now, this was to set context to what we are going to, decipher, break down, and analyze as to what is this behavior, whether it was intended, whether it was unintended, what's the catch here that we must know so that we stop ourselves from getting into such a thick situation. So I'm going to share on my screen the PPT which we have prepared for the session, and I'm going to take you through slide wise just to give some context as come masala to the session. So let's start with that, and I'm going to share this on the screen right away. So guys, can you see the PPT?
Not yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Right. So what is not sexual harassment? The very first slide itself, if you look at, says that it's not a women's thing, it's not a passing fad, it's something to joke about. Now, if you take it from my experience, what I omitted in mentioning to you guys was that I was working as a manager in taxation with PricewaterhouseCoopers. And the most difficult time there I had was addressing such complaints which did come to me. And where most of the bias was based on the fact that ये तो लड़कियों की चीज है, it's a women thing, it's a passing fad, it's something to joke about. And that's when the first time I faced this challenge that how do you manage this? Now, just to start with, sexual harassment is nothing, but it is just about power. It's about aggression. It's about how one individual can control and perceive it in that sense that he has that power and control to make you do something for something or against something, right? So it's not something to be joked about. I see it in the courts all the time where people tell me, "Arey, it's a fake complaint, it's a sexual harassment complaint." No, it's not. It's something that is prevalent. And with that, I like to bring some stats to the forefront today. And some stats that I have, they're there in the slide, but I'm going to narrate them to you just to set context again, compiled by NCRB. NCRB being, of course, the National Crime Records Bureau. It is that every 100,000 complaints that we receive, we only have about 6% conviction, which is pertaining to sexual harassment. So you can see the amount of conviction that is there.
Amber,
Subsequently,
if you change the slides, Amber, you'd like to change the slides, put it on
I
screen show.
sure. I like to show you the
Put it on,
slide where we
put it
have the
on
stats.
presentation mode, it'll be easy.
Yeah, I'll show it here. I have the slides with me here. I'll be able to show it here. This is one of the last slides I had, but I thought I'll set context to it. You see only 6.3% convictions are there for 1 lakh cases that are registered in matters of sexual harassment. Subsequently, what is also interesting is that 70% women do not report or mention anywhere sexual harassment that has happened at workplace. 54% rise has been recorded in sexual harassment cases since 2015. Interestingly, as usual, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Haryana have been championing the cause as usual in sexual harassment. What is completely shocking to me was that the ICC members and their role, which we see today, was completely below par for performance. There's only 60% of members of the Internal Complaints Committee who did not even turn up for matters of sexual harassment. And also shockingly, 50% of members were not aware as to what their role responsibilities are. So if I go by stats and figures and I get you to this slide here, it completely means what I'm trying to say here, that it's just not a women's thing, it's not a passing fad, it's something not to joke about, right? Now, what is sexual harassment? Legally speaking, there is a definition given under the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act 2013, which talks about sexual harassment is following four actions. But let's break it down into these simple proverbial English words as to what sexual harassment is. In our language, in my parlance, that is the legal parlance, what we say, these are those actions or overtures of a nature which put a woman into such a discomfort at her workplace that either she is not able to perform mentally or she is not able to do or deliver as expected out of her, making her comfortable in her personal space as well. And if you go as per the definition, it is one of the five which I have mentioned here, which is it is a physical contact and certain advances of a sexual nature. It is a demand or a request for sexual favors, someone making sexually charged remarks to another person, someone showing someone else pornography at work. Another strong point here, and any unwelcome physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct of a sexual nature of any kind. Well, these are pretty common, and let me highlight with certain experiences. If you go through a bay sometimes where a bunch of men are sitting, and I am not indicating that men at your workplace, but usually in a corporate setup, they tend to have a chat on their own. And during that chat which they are engaged on, they sometimes tend to use certain words which in context might not fit in the definition of what we are talking here. And it can make any other person uncomfortable. Well, that small gesture of using those unwelcome words is also sexual harassment. Uh, Whether you believe it or not, it is true. It does not stand vitiated in eyes of law. I had a case with me, just to give you an example, where there was one gentleman who said, I was abusing from my particular cubicle. How did she hear my abuses right four cubicles across? And I was angry at somebody. Well, you know what the court said? The court said, well, sir, this was not a public place for self-expression. If you had to do so, India Gate is registered for you. You are bound to go there and use whatever terms you would want to. So what I would want to highlight here is that there is a decorum that needs to be followed. There has to be a tone to a language that needs to be followed. It should not cross the definition of what sexual harassment is, because your actions can actually make someone uncomfortable. Now, I've used the term harassment and sine qua non factors. Now, this is such a common legal term, sine qua non. It means the most important and the most crucial factors which pertain to harassment and on which harassment is based. So there are multiple factors which I've mentioned. I'm going to take up examples of the same. The most unknown, or basically the rarest of the forms, are pertaining to family status, are pertaining to race, are pertaining to religious beliefs, and are pertaining to most probably color of your skin. Now, how does that operate? Well, any contextual reference to your race which makes it immoral. I have had people, trust me, who have come and said, in example, that the XYZ individual belongs to that race and I find her very appealing. Now, this kind of a word which is used in an office context is a big no-no. It cannot be said, cannot be used at any point of time. When it comes to family status, I've heard people saying just because the individual belongs to a family status that is different from theirs, they have a different connotation, and people at workplace attach their behavior to it and generalize that person as someone or something. It could be with regards to a mindset they have. This again will tantamount to sexual harassment in all entirety, trust me. Marital status. So many times it happens that women who are married tend to face this, where someone says, well, I like married women. Now, this is very direct. This is very much on the face. It's very strong, but it does happen all the time. And it need not be actually so direct and frontal in front of you. It could be as simple as that, where someone sitting across just directly hints or indirectly hints by saying, well, you know what, married women do have a special place. Now, that itself is reference to a sexual harassment dialogue that you're engaging with your male colleague. So, all of these, which I'm talking about here, sadly represent and are the main core factors, right? Physical disability. There are cases where people have actually, and I'm going to not name that company, but where there was a provision for physical or mentally disabled, and I'm using this word because the law states it, but I would say differently able people, they were subsequently abused to the core due to their disability. And owing to their disability, there was a use of term in a sexual way. So it's not something which is very, very common to see, but it is prevalent in today's time when I say and when I speak that sexual harassment does exist. So these are some of the core factors that you should be wary of, and these do matter. Generally, women who come up with a complaint to us only talk about very, very simple situations that I'm not sure whether that guy commented on my race or whether that guy, commented on the color of my skin or on my gender. In any way, would that, counter or culminate into sexual harassment? Well, it does in all entirety, trust me. Right? Now, what are the forms of sexual harassment that actually exist? Now, there are generally two forms of sexual harassment, which is the quid pro quo, which is this for that. Then there is the adversum work environment. Adversum being the Latin term for adverse, hostile, or very uncomfortable work environment. You can make someone uncomfortable in a work environment with just a glance. So trust me, if someone says that I just glanced at an individual and the person is complaining and is lying that they're uncomfortable, it can be. Uh, in one of my professional stints in a government department, there was one gentleman who unintentionally, and it's a funny story I'm telling you in between, he used to have a problem with vision, and he was staring constantly at my counterpart, who was a female, when we were presenting ourselves in a hearing. And while doing so, she just said, "Sir, you just made me so uncomfortable. Are you trying to hint at something?" Now, in this scenario, we of course could not differentiate because we didn't know he had a problem. And when the junior got up and said, would you mind excusing, please, because he has a vision deficiency. Now, we weren't sure what it was. But even if it was done innocently, it made someone uncomfortable in all entirety. So, adverse work environment is something that can be done with anything, right? Intention, non-intention is a subsequent part, but making someone uncomfortable at your work environment by your gestures or actions is very much part of the whole gamut we are talking about. Now, if I come to quid pro quo, which talks about this for that, and this is the scenario we played out in the presentation for you guys, the AV which we played, right? That AV was meant to show this only, that there is no need for a direct confrontation. All someone needs to do is to give you false promises, to tell you or to subject you to a very detrimental behavior, or putting threat onto your promotions. So many times it happens when the performance coaching and development program is launched for employees on so many factors that and let's talk only about men. I'm not even getting to the women's side of things when I talk about this sexual harassment. Even during the men's side, if you see, and most of the men would agree during their early forms of career, that you would be subjected to a condition where the boss would say, well, why must I give you that rating that you need in order for that 30% bonus? And you put your foot forward and you give him all the details. In the end, if he does not like you, or in the end, if there is a bias he has in his mind, or if there is that power he has, he will not give it to you. Then you can imagine in terms of women, where he knows that there is a degree of control to be exercised, it is exercised to that extent. And being a woman, it's difficult to express the same. Trust me, when we stand in court and we address these problems, it's totally not at all comfortable situation, because such questions are asked. So let alone in a single room with someone they do not know, you're put and subjected to such a situation. I'm pretty sure it's going to crack any woman up. Sadly, our laws, which are the sexual harassment laws, are not gender neutral, right? So I feel for the men as well. But trust me, as far as women are concerned, it's a major, major hurdle and issue in India. Now I'll come to the next slide. This talks about the behavior pattern at work, or the actus reus. Actus reus being your actions at work. Generally, as I spoke, there are certain actions which are taken into consideration and not many. Well, we have huge list of actions that are taken into consideration, starting from visual to verbal to written to touching to power to force. I'm not sure as far as force being considered in India, but physical assault at off sites is such a common thing that prevails. So many times there are cases that are put before the HRs, which are put before committee members of physical assault. Now you would be thinking physical assault would mean somewhere where I physically use power or energy to subdue. Well, that's not correct. The term physical assault we are using here is even touching someone without the consent of that person, even while dancing or even while being in a friendly atmosphere, right? If you look at visual, I'll start with visual.
Amber,
Yeah.
so sorry to interrupt you.
Hello.
Hello. Amber, could
Diksha,
you
I'm
just
losing you
put the
there.
slide on the slideshow? It will be visible. The content will be visible. Hello. Amber,
Hello.
could you put your PPT on a slideshow?
Right. Just give me a sec. I'll just share it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just give me a sec. Right. Is it visible now?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, guys. I happened to miss on this. I thought maybe we are in sync here. Right. Can you guys see it now?
Yes, it is clear now.
Yeah. So as I was mentioning, right, I gave you an offsite example, which was with regards to force. I'm now coming to the heads of visual, where ogling, staring, posters, magazines, flyers, calendars. Now, you would be thinking calendars, flyers, magazines, what have they got to do? Well, some of us do consider office as our personal space, and we do put up calendars or flyers of a nature that might be offensive, right? These type of uh, calendars, flyers, or magazines, which are a little exotic in nature and tend to, I'm sure because due to long work hours, people do put up such stuff, not knowing that they're not in their home space, but putting up such stuff can really offend, people around you, and it's totally not comfortable. In most of the countries, and let me start by even comparing India to Canada in terms of international standards, it is offensive to put even a calendar showcasing a holiday on a beach where you are addressing people in a particular dress code, right? So if you have somebody from the opposite gender, whether it is men or whether it is women in that context, even if that is put up in your office calendar, that is considered as offensive and taken in grounds of sexual harassment. The easiest way to disguise yourself is ogling, right? This is the most common where the complaint fails, and I've seen this a lot where sometimes you see people just sit and stare either, and if you go and push them and say, hey, what's up, so they're going to reply back to you and say, I was just thinking on this particular slide as to how it should go, or I was just thinking about this matter, I was actually not ogling at you. So trust me, guys, ogling is bad. Ogling is good as long as you do it without getting caught, right? So don't ogle so expressively, so implicit, in such an implicit way that you get caught uh, outrightly. Ogling is not bad. You can ogle, you can stare. Staring and ogling is something which comes into your traits, but not in your office workspace or elsewhere in a way that you put someone into discomfort or you put someone in such a position that they are not able to perform. There are cases where, due to just ogling and staring, women have had panic attacks. Women have had psychological disorders in offices. So I would say ogling is my culprit in terms of proving it in court of law. I always fail at ogling because there are no grounds in ogling that you can actually prove. So please do not use this trait at all, right? So if similarly, I mean, if you see written heads which talks about love poems, love letters. Well, love letters was a thing back in school, but I'm sure in offices it is something which is on the trend recently. Cards, email, again, big no. You want to approach someone, you want to please date somebody in such a situation. I'm talking as a lawyer. Please, there are ways and means to do that. Do not write unwanted content and stuff on your emails, and deleting those emails will not actually remove the trace. Also, one of the things that I always tell people, but these are indicators. I mean, you should not take them very lightly. Sometimes I've seen that there is an obscene letter which has gone around and everybody is laughing to it, right? Well, very good, you're laughing to it. Very comfortable for everyone that they're laughing at such a scenario. But trust me, for somebody out there out of 100, this can prove fatal, right? Do not do so. please restrict yourself from doing such activity as much as possible. I'm sure your team is very cool. It can handle whatever discussions you have in that particular scenario, but please restrict yourself of not doing this, because there might be somebody who might be complying with you due to your seniority, but you might be making that person uncomfortable, right? I'll come to the most important part of touching, which is violating space, patting, grabbing, pinching, caressing, kissing. Well, these are extreme ones I'm talking about. The most common one is patting. Uh, it is so obvious, though we are in this century, that these are very minor things as we speak. But trust me, there are people who get uncomfortable. Patting at workspace until and unless that person has given you the assent. The video did not play very well. Trust me, in the AV we had shown how the talks were making the female employee uncomfortable. I mean, when I was there, I had seen in my team as well that people do pat on each other's back, that wonderful, good job done. Or they would drag their chairs and just sit next to the female employee so closely that it would make her uncomfortable. But due to that situation, she is not able to speak up and say, hey, no, don't do this. And they take it as, let it be. I should not cause a problem, right? So this is another situation I would request everybody that they keep this in mind. And from a female perspective, if this is making you feel uncomfortable, please do raise your voice. You have to be, at all circumstances, be attentive as to where there is a violation and where there is not, right? Now there are two heads I've made in the slide which are there, which talks about offensive conduct may be a violation, and there is one which demands are a violation in all cases, right? What both of these heads are trying to say here is that in case there are demands, I'll come to demands first. In case there is a demand of any sorts, well, it's a no-go at the very outset. You cannot put demands. If you put demands, it's out of context. Any kind of demand that is put here, whether it's demanding a very small favor to a very big favor, it's a big no-no. It tantamounts to harassment of sexual nature, right? Sometimes you might have just said something, and that is in the other head, which is the offensive conduct may be a violation. You might have said something in just a very generic sense, right? Unintending to cause that harm. But trust me, there is no unintention or unintending concept here, because this offense is not run by the concept of mens rea, which is a guilty mind at all times. This is a combination of action coupled with a mental intention. And what I'm trying to tell you guys here is sometimes you might be in a frame of mind where you have no bad intention at all, and you might just say something to someone, and it may be a woman, in a very passive manner without thinking of what she or he would feel, and then you get a reaction. Well, trust me, it might be cool, it might be comfortable for you, but in a professional decorum, you need to keep score of what you speak and how you speak, because the other person may not be in the same frame of mind. With this, I change my next slide. This is about the harassment costs. Whenever this happens in India, I mean, I've been part of company law boards also as appearing attorney. What I've seen the most is the harassment costs. Employees and employers, they don't realize at all what consequences they can have, right? From an employer perspective, you have low productivity in the team, you have a very low motivation in the team. There is huge amount of litigation, and trust me, this litigation has been on the rise. There are different investigations. National Commission of Women come and approach you. You're affecting your customers, your supply chain. You're doing a lot of things. There's a lot of rotation in the staff. All of this will cause disintegration in the team, rather keeping the team together. And it would be my sincere advice to everybody that they must weigh the costs of all of these factors, because this is something which defines a company, right? Why do you think Tata prefer to people in Tata want to work there for their lifetime? And or for that matter of fact, somebody like a Godrej or somebody of a stature of, let's say, Nivea, or somebody of a stature of Nestle, they would want to work there because this is the environment the company does not harbor for them. It protects them from this. But if I am a financial guy and I'm looking at figures that why must I have this environment, here are key pointers that you must keep in mind. As far as employees are concerned, these are only some of the matters that I've listed. Loss of self-esteem, such a common factor, embarrassment, anger. Most of the Indians, and especially women who are working at workspaces, are regressed and repressed, and they have so much of anger in them that when they're in court, they take the strictest form of action they can, where they can come out and really speak for themselves. Why is that? Because such kind of behavior actually puts you in such a situation, right? Uh, Also, people want to avoid. I'm sure this pandemic is a savior for most of the women who would have faced sexual harassment at their workplace, because now they don't have to face the exploiter. So this lockdown must be bad for somebody, but it may be a boon for someone. Well, why to have such an environment in your organization that you have this? There are some firms, as and we call them Lala companies in my language, and Lala companies are small time firms, and they keep changing their employees every now and then due to performance, due to other things. Well, they can never be as big as you guys are because they don't have the principles they need to keep the environment safe. So this is one of the major issues that I'm highlighting, that a company must look at when it's assessing its, assessing its progress or its development in coming future. Now I'll go to the next slide, please. This is the most interesting slide. You can read the text here. It says Majnus at work. Now this we collated from the internet. These are some scenarios which my team had sat and collated, because this is what we see. I'll start with cartoon 1. It says that tonight our little project team will do great work on it. And making sexual advances or demanding sexual favors is the head. Well, if you see here, and the cartoonist has made it very well, there is a hand on the chair, there is a special comfort in the eyes, and there's a way of communicating, right? Similarly, if you shift to the next cartoon, I think by default it says a lot. It says sexy, 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 mujhe log bole. Humming of songs. The typical sign that I see in Majnugiri at any place, sorry I'm using this term in such a professional setup, but even in courts we see this, is playing of songs. Trust me, it's not going to get you anything. Embarrassing, filmy songs being played on your phone, even not targeted at someone, but playing in your cabin, playing in your on your desk, in your bay. Completely a big no-no, please. Completely a big no-no. Right? And thirdly, the most common one, which is you're just a woman, we need a man for this assignment. This is something which needs to be addressed, and I think Dr. Neeru will talk in detail about this, because when we see it in the court of law, this is something which is totally prevalent in smaller teams, in mid-hierarchy teams, and in the senior most teams. I was handling taxation at one of the departments, and we were going to taxation departments. And trust me, when we got together, one of the partners got up and said, "Well, you're just a woman. We need a man for this assignment." And that's a really big demotivation factor. So these are some of the examples that I've tried to put forward. Right, Majnu behavior, again a big no-no. Please save yourself from Majnuism. It's going to cost you a lot in litigation. Trust me, a lot in hiring a lawyer like me, and a lot at your workplace. I'm coming to the next slide now. This slide we're going to discuss as to what are the workplaces where this act or this particular sexual harassment applies to. It extends to what all places, and who would be a aggrieved woman. Most of us, when I ask this question, and I'm going to put the QA round towards the end of it, do ask this question, that who is an aggrieved woman. Generally people tend to say it is employees, office boys, full-time employees, etc. Well, trust me, it's not that. There's more than that catches the eye. An aggrieved woman could be a regular employee, a temporary employee, probationer, intern, apprentice, a visitor sitting in your visiting section, right? Could be a co-worker, could be somebody who's working on grassroots level, could be anybody, right? So an aggrieved woman definition is very vast. It starts from that lowest level of employee that you have doing all your office works, to someone who's into a professional engagement, handling a professional setup. It does not mean the employee has to be permanent. It could be of any nature, maybe even a monthly contractor or a daily wager you have. So that's that. As far as workplace is there, what would constitute a workplace? This definition has been enhanced under the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act 2013. It extends to a variety of places and extends to a variety of organizations, office parties, off-sites, trainings, client meetings, training session. As we speak, the training session where we are sitting, traveling for office purpose. You're in a cab. The driver is sitting next to you. It's a hired cab and he behaves in a particular manner. It is sexual harassment. You are going on an assignment representing your office. You're going to the department, which is a government department. You face harassment at that place. That is also covered in sexual harassment, and it would be the responsibility of your office to deal with. Right? So it covers anything and anything. In terms of law, it means continuance of your duties which were attested to you or appended to you on course your employment. So the employment starts from the time you sit in your cab to the time you get down in your office to the time you go to a offsite. Any duration that you are doing not out of your private choice, but you're involved in due to your work engagement or as part of your office duties would come within the definition of sexual harassment. I'll now move to the next slide. All right, this slide pretty much sums up what I've tried to, talk about, the complaint mechanism and the system you have at hand. This is the internal complaints committee and the complaint process. So I'm posting this question to you so that I get an answer when we have the Q&A session. How many of you are aware of the procedures that are mentioned here? I've surmised them and know that this is how you must follow, or this is what exists in your current organization and that you're well versed with. Trust me, most of you would not be. When I was in my professional capacity working as a corporate individual, I used to press next on all my POSH trainings to get my compliance certificate. Well, here's what it is. An internal complaints committee is nothing much but a mechanism provided to deal with complaints pertaining to sexual harassment. It needs to have a presiding officer who should be a woman and a senior woman employee. There should be at least 2 members from the mid-level or the low level of hierarchy from that particular office. There should be an external member. This member should be from an NGO or a lawyer or an association which is committed to cause of women, right? So National Commission of Women is also a party or an external member, right? These 3 factors is where India is deficient at most in most of the workplaces, because what conditions are laid down or stipulated here are shown on paper, but in person, the criteria is not met at all, right? Also, I've put three further points down. If you see them, they are that not less than half of the committee members shall be women. There are certain committees in India, you'll be shocked to know, that have more men than women, and they expect an outcome out of it. There has to be a balance between the two. There's a penalty of 50,000 in case someone fails or does not have this required quorum, right? Rotation of members is a big must. The term of the members at all cannot exceed period of 3 years. There has to be a shuffling. The shuffling, what it does is it ensures that all individuals get on board who have the bent of mind needed to be a member of the committee, and it increases the exposure, right? While committing an inquiry, as simple as it, there have to be 3 members, including the presiding officer. Now, the most important part which I'm going to talk about is the complaint process. Again, a question to you guys. How many of you know how to write this complaint or know what is the procedure? Generally, the procedure, and maybe you guys can answer in the Q&A, but right now, let me tell you, the complaint procedure is simple. It could be a simple blank piece of paper with multiple copies, which are necessarily around 6, with supporting documents which you have to support your cause. Need not also to have documents, name and addresses of witnesses which are there. That should be sufficient enough. even a small recording you have on your phone of 5 seconds, audio or visual, will also count as evidence. So whatever you do, please do maintain your supporting documents or evidence that you have on board with you, right? Filing time is 3 months from the time of incident. In case if the person is suffering any kind of disability, inability to file that complaint during those 3 months, you can apply for an extension and can apply further in another period of 3 months, right? What is the responsibility of the committee here? Once the complaint is received, the committee is to respond back within a period of 7 days with the acknowledgement that the complaint has been taken and the complaint has to be sent to the accused. This is a very simple procedure. In case you find that your complaint has not been registered, I'm going to talk about that in our last slide. There are different ways to it, but trust me, a piece of paper, an email, a text message, right, which you can convert into an email or a written message would also qualify. Now, what happens, let's say, when the committee is set up and the inquiry is completed? Well, there is a time period of 90 days in which the inquiry has to be completed. India, by far, by 60%, is not able to comply with this condition itself due to non-cooperative employees at workforce, due to people hiding their complaints, due to witnesses going hostile in between when the committee is functioning. So it's a major issue, right? But nonetheless, the statutory requirement is 90 days. If there is a failure to do so, you have the right to approach courts, right? There's an inquiry report. This inquiry report will help you in filing of your FIR or filing of your complaint. This has to be issued within a period of 10 days. Sorry, can you guys hear me? I can have some. Hello? Hello? Right. The employer further is required to act on the recommendations of the committee within 60 days. This means that once the report is submitted, the employer has to provide you with a recourse, whether a legal recourse or a remedy. The remedy could be firing of the individual, stopping the promotion, holding back the person from doing any more activities which are making it uncomfortable for others. All of these are some of the remedies that are available. In case you're not satisfied with this report which is submitted and the recommendation, you have 90 days to appeal from that particular day. So this is just a small, concise outlook of what an internal complaints committee looks like and how the procedure falls. I'm coming to the last slide, which is regarding unknown legislations in sexual harassment. I spoke about some of the facts which are given here at the outset, but I'm going to talk about certain legislations apart from POSH which we do not know about. Certain aspects of POSH people know that, the Vishaka judgment came, there is a Sexual Harassment Act, the act provides for XYZ things. Well, trust me, POSH is one of the acts. Apart from that, there is the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946. Apart from your corporate office where the policy applies, in case if you have a manufacturing setup where you're required to present yourself and there are employees working, there are workers, there are laborers, there is the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act. What standing orders means is that the act states completely that all individuals or employees or laborers working in that factory at that particular point of time need to have this policy in front. That policy will be framed as a standing order and will be signed and presented to the Gazette in the Gazette of the Government of India. So it's a very big safeguarding provision which is available out there. And trust me, if you've not applied to your manufacturing facility, this definitely applies. And all women employees are equally, accessible and have the right to apply under this act. Second last being the Indian Penal Code. Women out there, the saving section for you is section 354. Please, I would say, mug the section. This is the section that's going to save you in case you need to file an FIR. 354A, 354B, 354C. I call it the Ratta section for women. It provides you, prevents you from stalking. It provides you remedy from stalking on internet. It provides you remedy from any kind of harassment which is done physical, verbal, or even voyeurism. So the mantra of the IPC is section 354 for women. And lastly, It is the She Box initiative. The She Box initiative is the initiative which is run by Government of India, Ministry of Children and Welfare. You can always reach out there and file in your complaints. It is available to all employees, whether governmental and non-governmental. Thus, lastly, I like to conclude my session with the slides here, and give you a gist on this. One small recourse before I end. I've short, by my time, by overtime by about 3 minutes. So I would like to say and apologize for that. But one last suggestion: please do not file false complaints. If you file false complaints, there are legal actions. So boys, there's a saving grace. You don't need to be intimidated. In case there is a false complaint against you, all gentlemen have the right to file counter FIRs for falsification of complaints against them. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks a lot. And with this, I'd like to conclude my PPT, and over to Neeru ma'am now.
Thank you, Amber. That was very, very exhaustive, covered everything, and I think the participants would feel very well informed and equipped by it. We will have the last 5-6 minutes for question answers. But before that, now that Amber has covered the compliance angle, I would like to go into the, like we spoke about, the gender intelligence and the unconscious bias. Because of the network issue, I could not complete my introduction, so I'm just going to take a few minutes for that. I was talking about that I'm a medical doctor. I'm the founder of an organization called Ask Insights. I have been in the space of diversity and inclusion for the last 15 years, perhaps the first person to start this conversation in India. Ever since that, we've been very fortunate to have partnerships with the world experts in the field of diversity and inclusion, including Dr. John Gray, who's the author of Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. I'm sure most of you have heard of him. Then Howard Ross, who's the pioneer in the subject of unconscious bias, and many more. We've also been fortunate to work across industries, across levels, across geographies. Ask Insights has provided consulting to more than 50 organizations. I myself have trained more than 20,000 people in this field, which is definitely the largest in India, if not Asia. Recently, I've been honored as the national icon by the Election Commission of India for the work done in diversity and inclusion. So that's a bit about myself and the organization. And now I'm going to share my deck with you to So we're going to talk about these two aspects, unconscious bias and gender intelligence, and what part do they play in the subject that we are talking about today. Before I start the unconscious bias, I thought it might be relevant for me to also talk about the COVID times. Now, though Amber had mentioned that it might be a boon to some, and totally it could be, because some people, some women who have been going to workplace and facing harassment might suddenly feel a relief out of that. But I have noticed, and cases have come to my attention, where even virtually the harassment can be an issue. So for example, people have come and reported to me that their manager might be sitting in a vest or a banyan over a virtual engagement. Or there may be music running in the background. Or he may be kind of semi-lying down or in a lounging position, which is not decent at all. Or even calling up at odd hours, 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night, 12 o'clock at night, because everybody's working virtually and the timelines have all got blurred. Well, all these come under sexual harassment. The fear in employees today is so much about retaining their positions, their visibility, that the reporting back or objecting to these gestures has become even less. I'm hearing of these cases every single day. So I think there are certain virtual ethics also that we have to be very, very mindful of, right? Or some object kept in the background which is not decent enough. And then we could turn around and say, well, that's my house, what can I do about it? But I think those things require a little mindfulness. All right, now let's come to unconscious bias. The subject of unconscious bias here is relevant for us to understand this theme because a lot of the reason the sexual harassment happens is what is their perception of the role of a woman, right? Do we have a bias that women are more in homemaking roles than in workplace roles? I can tell you this, that having done thousands and thousands of sessions, I have encountered many people who say, if you are asking so many women to come to the workplace, what will happen to the children? So in their minds, they feel that the exodus, the huge number of women that are coming into the workplace, it's not necessary. Why are organizations doing so much about it, right? So when that imprint is